Hello, in this video I'm going to cover what you need to do to upgrade both the storage and memory of your Razer 15 laptop. This particular example is a 2019 model with RTX 2080 graphics, and it comes with 16 gigs of PC2666 memory and 500 gigs of storage, Samsung NVMe. I'll be upgrading to 2 terabyte storage with a faster Samsung drive and 32 gigs of RAM. In this case, the Corsair Vengeance. This is one of the better memory packages you can get for this laptop. As far as brands, you can also go with a faster speed with lower latency. They make 3000 and so forth. I just opted to get the 266, which is what it comes with. To access your NVMe and memory, you just flip your laptop over, put a cloth to protect the surface so you don't scratch anything. There are 10 screws on the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws. I've already removed them. And there's nothing attaching the back to the chassis, so it lifts right up. If it sticks at all, don't worry about it. It's just some adhesive from these pieces. You have your two memory chips over here and NVMe drive over here. I've already put the Samsung drive in here. I've yet to put the memory though, so I'll be showing you the memory install. The NVMe install is simple. Just a single Phillips screwdriver. You unscrew it. And it's spring loaded. You see it lifts up. And you pull it out. So when you put it in and out, you're moving it at a slight angle. Pressing down. And then putting your screw down. If you want to use an additional heatsink on this, you can. And it will, I've tried it, it lowers the temperature by about 3 degrees if you feel it necessary, but I find that it's not really necessary. But if you want to put a heatsink on it, you're going to have to trim down the thermal pad on the back, which is right over here. Because as it is, it's a perfect fit. So the only way a heatsink will fit is if this is trimmed down. And the memory is replaced with these little levers on the side. See this little tab on either side. And then it pops up. Tab on either side, pops up. Very simple. And I will also briefly tell you what you need to do if you wish to clone the operating system versus having to do an install. Some people are under the impression that they can only do a fresh install, which is all well and good. You can totally do that. But if you would like to preserve the factory install, you totally can. But you'll need a couple of things. You'll need disk imaging software and a partitioning program. I like to use Acronis True Image for cloning the drive. And you have to do it to an external hard drive. You can't do a disk-to-disk copy to a USB attached storage. So the way that you would clone the existing contents of your Razer laptop will be to use a cloning software such as Acronis True Image, which is what I like to use. you're going to create a sector by sector disk image to an image file on an external drive. And once you've created that disk image, you put your new drive in your laptop, and then you're going to boot up with either a USB bootable or a CD DVD boot up. Go into your imaging software, and then you're going to choose restore disk, select your image, and it's going to be a sector by sector restore, and then you let it do its thing. Once it's done, if you're restoring onto a larger drive, it's not going to expand the partitioning size, so you'll have to go into your operating system and change the size of your partition. So anyway, let me insert the my new memory. You saw me pull out the old. Now, that was out with the old, now in with the new. I will be putting this in at an angle into the slot. And make sure you follow the pin as you put on here. It matches the slot there. There's only one way you can put the memory in, so there's no way you can mess it up. So you put it in, press gently, and then you snap it down into place, and you hear a positive click. And you repeat the same process with the other slot. 16 gigs of RAM will be enough for most people that are just gaming, your average user, even light power users. But if you want to really have the best possible capabilities, if you're planning on doing a lot of video editing and whatnot, then you'll want to go with 32 gigs. You can go up to 64 gigs of RAM on this machine, but that's going to be overkill for most people. Unless you plan on doing a lot of 8K video edits and you're doing a lot of it, or if you're running multiple VMs, virtual machines, and you want to assign a lot of memory to each of those virtual machines. Other than circumstances like that, 64 gigs is overkill and a waste of money. So that's all you have to do for the physical install of the RAM chips and your NVMe drive. Very, very simple to put in. The most complicated part is going to be either cloning your NVMe or your fresh install is actually the hardest part of the process. So I've done both. I've done both a fresh install or one time, and what I'm sticking with is my clone of the original Razer. Now let me continue on. I'll be booting up the machine, and let me show you some basic information on what you need to do regarding repartitioning the drive once you clone it. Because this comes with a 500 gig drive. If you put it on a 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, whatever, it's still going to come up as 500 gigs. You're going to then need to choose if you want to go with 2 partitions, or 1 big partition, or 2 partitions. If you want to go with 1 big partition, you're going to need some additional software, which I'll go over. Okay. Now continuing on, I'm just going to show you the new memory setup. This is CPU Z. With information about my CPU. Over here I can look at my memory, how much memory I have installed, some of the information about it. This has 18 CAS latency on this 2666 kit. If you get the 3000 kit, it'll be more money, but you can get a CAS 16. Although for everyday use you're not going to see any real difference in performance between the two, so you may as well just save your money there. If you're doing a clone of your computer, if you did a clone of the original operating system that came installed on your Razer to a new larger SSD, you're going to have to repartition the drive. So this remaining portion of the video, I'm just going to give you some brief information on the partitioning process to either do 2 separate partitions or 1 large partition. Now, looking at the disk management software built within Windows, you can type format and it will give you a link to the program. Create and format disk partitions. This has already been readjusted to accommodate the full capacity of my drive, but what you would see here after cloning your original 500 gig NVMe to your new one is you're going to have about 1.5 gigs, a terabyte and a half almost, of unallocated space at the end. So if you wanted to make your C drive 1 large partition rather than just adding a second partition for your installs, what you're going to need to do is move this WinRE partition to the end of your hard drive. The only way to do that is with third-party partitioning software, as that's not something you can do within Windows itself. You can extend or reduce or shrink the size of your partitions within this built-in disk management software in Windows, but you cannot move partitions. So to move partitions, I've used a program by EASEUS, and it's called Partition Master. You can get it for free. You can get a free version and use that to move your drive. So you would, here in the program, here's that WinRE partition. You would right click, choose resize, go to advanced settings, and change and make sure that unallocated after is set to 0. It's not going to be 0 when you do your image. It says 0 right now because that's already been done. So you would change it to 0, choose OK, and then on the top you would tell it to execute changes, and then it will move the data that's in that partition all the way to the end of the drive. And now you can continue back in disk management and extend the size of your C partition, or you could extend the size of your C partition within here. You just go back to resize move on your Blade 15 partition, just stretch it out all the way to the end, or just change your partition size. Just type in 99999, hit enter, it'll automatically use the maximum space it can use. Although I actually recommend just doing that within the built-in disk management software that comes in Windows. It actually does it faster than within the EASE Partition Master program, which would require a reboot and then a few moments to continue it. To extend the size of a partition or shrink one, you would look at your partitions, right-click, and choose Extend Volume. When you choose Extend Volume, so look at your disks. By default, it's going to have the maximum size it can be. You just choose OK, and it will take literally seconds, and it will be the maximum size. If you wanted to shrink your partition, you would just choose, of course, Shrink Volume. Right-click, Shrink Volume, and it's going to show you that information. Now I can choose a new number, choose Shrink, and it doesn't take very long, and then your volume will be smaller. So now you can add additional partitions. An advantage of having more than one partition is you can install your games folders, for example, to your D partition. So the bulk of my data is going to be taken up from game installs, from my Steam library, from my Oculus Rift library, and let's say I, for the purpose of restoring my computer using my disk imaging software, let's say if I had a problem, if everything was done on one large partition, which is the way I have it set up currently, and I needed to go back to an earlier version of the computer, it would need to restore all that data, which is more wear and tear on the drive. Since there is a limited amount of data that can be written to an SSD, you kind of want to keep it to a minimum. But if you have it as 2 partitions and you install your game library to your second partition, which doesn't need to be restored generally when you're restoring your OS, you're generally not going to need to worry about that. So it's a lot much. It'll be that much faster to restore your computer, and that much less wear and tear on your SSD. So that might be a better way to go. Another way you can do when restoring your drive is do an advanced recovery where you exclude certain folders. So let's say you need to restore your computer to an earlier state. So you're going to choose Restore, select your disk image, and under Advanced Recovery Options, you're going to exclude your game folders, which has most of your data in it. It's from the gaming. So it won't need to recopy everything over. It'll just copy everything but that data, which is most likely going to be intact anyway. When depending on the type of virus or problem that might hit your computer, it might not necessarily hit your gaming folder. So in many cases, you'll be fine doing that. So anyway, and again, to reiterate, the only way to clone your existing operating system on your computer is to use disk imaging software and restore it to an external hard drive as an image file. And then it's going to be a sector-by-sector disk copy, saved as an image file on an external thumb drive if it's large enough, or an external hard drive. And then you'll need to use media, either with a CD or a DVD, such as this. I have an external Blu-ray DVD reader, writer. So you're going to need to boot up into that medium, into your recovery software, and then you will access from that software your image file and do a disk recovery, selecting that image onto your new drive, and then you're going to be up and running. People that have tried to do a disk-to-disk copy using an externally USB connected drive doesn't work, because it'll just copy the data, you put it in your computer, and it won't boot. So the only way to get it to boot is to save it as a disk image, and then use the boot media for your recovery software. You do a disk, restore disk, select your image file, restore it onto your new SSD, and then that's all you got to do, and you'll be up and running. I will post another video later on where showing the process actually being done using Acronis True Image, which is the software that I use to clone my system. So that's it for now. If you like the video, please hit the thumbs up. If you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe. If there's anything you'd like to see from me in particular, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.